The observation deck of the Resilience offered Commander Jessa Hawthorne her first glimpse of Keter Prime.
Oh, the jewel of the Meridian Empire.
The planet hung before them like a sapphire and emerald marble, its twin moons casting silver crescents. Across continental masses that sparkled with the geometric precision of vast cities, after 8 months of careful approach and diplomatic transmissions, Earth's most important delegation was finally arriving. Breathtaking, isn't it? Blackfield joined Jessa at the viewport, her xenobiology equipment cases secured nearby. Those city patterns suggest a collective intelligence in their urban planning. Absolutely fascinating. Jessa nodded, though her mind was focused on the dozens of Meridian vessels that had shadowed them for the past week. Sleek, crystalline, ships that moved with an almost organic grace, their hulls catching and refracting starlight into rainbow patterns. Beautiful, but undoubtedly armed. Commander Captain Marcus Stone's voice carried across the deck, receiving final approach vectors. Meridians want us to dock at their primary diplomatic station in 4 hours. Understood, Marcus. Jessa straightened her dress uniform one final time. Everything had to be perfect. Earth's future, perhaps humanity's survival, depended on the next few days. On Keter Prime. Ambassador Kethver of the High Assembly watched the primitive human vessel lumber toward their magnificent capital. The alien ship was crude by Meridian standards. Harsh angles and functional design with none of the flowing aesthetic that marked truly civilized engineering. His chitinous exterior shifted through subtle color changes, betraying his curiosity despite his diplomatic training. Such an ungainly craft, remarked Counselor Zephin from beside him in the observation chamber. We certain these beings possess anything of value? Kethver's compound eyes tracked the human ship's approach. Intelligence reports suggest they have extensive mineral wealth and biological diversity. Their technology appears adequate for resource extraction, if properly directed. Primitives often prove manageable. Zephin's mandibles clicked. In amusement, the Assembly's terms should be quite acceptable to them, considering the alternative. The Meridian Empire had incorporated 47 species over the past 3 centuries. The process was always the same: demonstrate overwhelming superiority, offer protection in exchange for resources and labor, then gradually integrate the new species into the Empire's hierarchical structure. Those who resisted learned harsh lessons about the price of defiance. Kethver's thorax plate shimmered with anticipation. This would likely be his final diplomatic assignment before ascending to the Inner Council. Successfully managing the human integration would cement his political legacy. Hours later, the human delegation stepped into the crystal spire that served as Keter Prime's diplomatic center. Jessa felt the weight of countless alien gazes as they were escorted through corridors that seemed to pulse with their own light. The architecture was stunning organic curves that somehow felt both natural and impossibly precise. Welcome to Keter Prime. Ambassador Kethver greeted them in perfect English, his translator and plant rendering the words with only the slightest mechanical undertone. I am honored to facilitate these historic discussions. Jessa studied the Meridian ambassador with professional interest. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his elegant exoskeleton a deep blue-green that shifted to purple highlights under the chamber's illumination. His forearms moved with precise grace, each gesture seemingly choreographed. But it was his eyes, those multifaceted compound eyes, that held her attention. There was intelligence there, and something else: curiosity, respect. It was difficult to read alien expressions. The honor is ours, Ambassador, Jessa replied with a formal bow that had been carefully practiced. Earth looks forward to productive discussions with the Meridian Empire. Indeed, Kethver's head tilted in what their cultural briefings had indicated was acknowledgement. Though I confess surprise at your delegation's single quotes as 3 representatives for an entire species, we believe in the power of focused dialogue, Nora interjected smoothly. Quality over quantity, as we say. Kethver's color patterns shifted slightly, amusement according to their xenology files. How charmingly direct. Very well, let us proceed to the formal chambers. The High Assembly is eager to begin. As they walked through increasingly grand corridors, Jessa noticed how other Meridians stopped their activities to stare at the human delegation. Some displayed the rapid color shifts that indicated excitement or curiosity. Others remained neutral, their patterns subdued and watchful. "Your people seem interested in us," Marcus observed quietly. "First contact is always stimulating," Kethfer replied. "We encounter so few truly novel species these days. Most who reach our borders possess variations of familiar technologies and social structures. Humans appear to be ... different." "Different how?" Jessa asked. Kethfer paused before massive doors that began opening at their approach. "Your persistence, perhaps? The journey to reach us was clearly difficult, yet you came anyway. Most species wait for us to contact them." The formal assembly chamber beyond took Jess's breath away. Crystalline formations rose like frozen waterfalls, each surface reflecting and amplifying the chamber's natural luminescence. Hundreds of Meridian officials occupied tiered seating, their collective presence creating a symphony of shifting colors and subtle harmonic vibrations. "Impressive," Nora whispered. "It's meant to be," Kethfer replied, though his tone seemed almost apologetic. "The High Assembly believes proper atmosphere enhances diplomatic outcomes." As they took their designated positions, Jessa felt the full weight of galactic politics settling on her shoulders. Every word, every gesture would be analyzed and interpreted. But as she caught Kethfer's gaze across the ceremonial space, she noticed something unexpected in those alien features. Was that concern? It's almost as if he were silently wishing them luck. The thought was both comforting and deeply troubling. If even their diplomatic host harbored doubts about these negotiations, what exactly was Earth walking into? "High Counselor." Vrathok's voice resonated through the chamber, formally opening the proceedings. "Let the integration protocols begin." Integration protocols. Trade negotiations or alliance discussions. Integration. Jess's training kept her expression neutral, but internally, every alarm was sounding. Earth had sent diplomats. The Meridians were conducting an acquisition. The Crystal Conference Chamber hummed with tension as High Counselor Vrathok outlined the Meridian Empire's generous offer. Dr. Nora Blackfield kept her expression carefully neutral while internally cataloging every detail of the alien's body language and vocal patterns. Earth shall contribute 60% of its mineral resources annually. Vrathok's translator rendered his clicks and harmonics into cold, precise English. Your species will relocate from 12 major population centers to allow proper resource extraction. In exchange, the Empire offers protection, advanced medical technology, and the privilege of citizenship at Tier 7 status. Tier 7. Jessa had studied the Empire's hierarchy extensively during the journey. Tier 7 citizens had fewer rights than the Meridian's household pets. "We appreciate the Empire's thoroughness," Jessa replied diplomatically. "However, these terms require careful consideration. Perhaps we could begin with smaller collaborative projects while there is nothing to consider." Counselor Zephin interrupted, his exoskeleton flashing aggressive orange patterns. "The Empire's terms are final. Lesser species do not negotiate with their betters." Scholar Vexera, observing from the research section, felt her air sacs contract with embarrassment at her colleague's rudeness. She had spent weeks studying the preliminary data on human physiology and culture, and everything suggested these beings deserved far more respect than they were receiving. During the recess, Nora found herself in the research wing, ostensibly to examine Meridian scientific equipment, but actually to escape the suffocating arrogance of the main negotiations. She paused before a complex biological analysis station, its crystalline components humming with energy. "Fascinating, isn't it?" The voice came from behind her, melodious despite its alien harmonics. "That station can analyze genetic sequences, down to individual molecular bonds." Nora turned to see a Meridian scientist, smaller and more delicately built than the politicians. Her exoskeleton bore the deep purple markings of the scholar caste, and her forearms moved with the precise grace of someone accustomed to detailed work. "I'm Scholar Vexeta," the alien continued. "I've been studying your species' biological data. Truly remarkable adaptability. Dr. Nora Blackfield, Nora replied, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. After a moment's hesitation, Vexera touched it gently with one of her upper limbs. The contact sent an unexpected warmth through both beings. Your cardiovascular system, Vexera said, quickly withdrawing her hand. It's so wonderfully efficient. Your neuroplasticity, we've never encountered anything quite like it. Your analysis equipment is incredible, Nora responded, grateful for the shift to professional topics. The resolution must be extraordinary. Would you like to see it in operation? Vexera's color patterns shifted to what Nora was beginning to recognize as nervous excitement. I have some samples of meridian cellular structures that might interest you. For the next hour, they worked side by side, Vexera, explaining meridian biology, while Nora shared insights about human physiology. Their initial professional curiosity gradually warmed into something deeper, a meeting of minds that transcended species barriers. Your people, Vexera said softly as they examined crystalline formations under magnification. They're not what the Council expected, are they? What did the Council expect? Nora asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Submission. Gratitude for the Empire's attention. Vexera's upper right arm brushed against Nora's shoulder as she adjusted the viewing apparatus. But you're not grateful, are you? Should we be? Nora met the alien's compound gaze directly. Your Empire wants to displace millions of our people, strip mine our world, and turn us into a labor force. What exactly should we be grateful for? Vexera's exoskeleton shifted through complex patterns: conflict, attraction, fear. I've never questioned the Empire's methods before, but spending time with your data, learning about human culture, ... You're not primitives, you're just different. Their faces had drawn closer as they spoke, and Nora found herself studying the intricate patterns of Vexera's features. The alien was beautiful in her own way, elegant and precise, with an intelligence that shone through her multifaceted eyes. Different isn't threatening, Nora whispered. It is to the Empire, Vexera replied, her voice barely audible. Different means unpredictable. The Council fears what it cannot control. Their moment was interrupted by the return chime, calling all participants back to the main chamber. As they separated, Vexera's lower left hand briefly touched Nora's wrist, a gesture that felt more intimate than any human contact she'd ever experienced. Back in the negotiations, the temperature had risen considerably. Marcus Stone stood beside Jessa, his military bearing unmistakable despite his diplomatic title. Several Meridian military advisors had joined the proceedings, their scarred exoskeletons and weapon harnesses a clear escalation. The Empire's patience has limits, General Tissera announced, her massive frame dominating the speaker's platform. Perhaps a demonstration would clarify the human's position. The chamber's central hologram activated, showing Earth from orbit. Suddenly, the image changed to display Meridian battleships surrounding the planet, dozens of them, their weapons, trained on major population centers. Your homeworld is currently under the protection of Imperial Fleet Gamma, Tissera continued, and this protection will continue as long as negotiations proceed, ... smoothly. Marcus felt his jaw clench, but forced his expression to remain calm. General, are you threatening Earth? I am clarifying the reality of your situation, Tissera replied, her compound eyes fixed on the human captain with obvious interest. Despite his species' apparent weakness, he showed no fear. Curious. Reality, Marcus repeated thoughtfully. Yes, I suppose we should all be clear about reality. Something in his tone made several Meridians shift uncomfortably. Ambassador Kethfer found himself studying the human commander more carefully. There was a confidence there that seemed unwarranted, given the circumstances. As the session continued, Jessa noticed the subtle interplay between Marcus and the Meridian general. Despite the military posturing, there was a kind of professional respect developing between them, warrior recognizing warrior, regardless of species. She also noticed how Dr. Blackfield kept glancing toward the research section, where the purple marked scholar watched the proceedings with obvious concern. That evening, in their assigned quarters, the human delegation compared notes. They're not as unified as they appear, Nora reported. The scientists, at least some of them, have serious doubts about the Empire's methods. The military is impressive, but overconfident, Marcus added. They've grown accustomed to easy victories against inferior opposition. Jessa nodded, her mind working through possibilities. Ambassador Kethfer seems almost apologetic about the whole process. Like he knows it's wrong, but can't stop it. So what do we do? Nora asked. Jessa looked out their window at the lights of the meridian. Capital, beautiful and alien under the twin moons. We give them one more chance to reconsider, and if they don't, she activated her personal communicator, entering a code sequence she'd hoped never to use. Priority Alpha to Earth Command. Initiate Protocol 7. Humanity is no longer alone. The message would take hours to reach Earth, but when it did, everything would change. The Meridians thought they were negotiating with a primitive species desperate for their approval. They were about to learn how wrong they were. There would be one final attempt at peace. Because despite everything, Jessa had seen something in Ambassador Kethfer Caesar, hoped that maybe, just maybe, this could end differently than all the others. In her research lab, Vexithera worked late into the night, analyzing human genetic samples and thinking about Dr. Blackfield's warm brown eyes. For the first time in her life, she found herself questioning not just the Empire's methods, but its entire foundation. Change was coming to the Meridian Empire, whether they recognized it or not. The war games began at dawn, Keter Prime's twin suns casting long shadows across the capital's military district. General Tissera had insisted the human delegation observe the Empire's defensive capabilities, a thinly veiled demonstration of what awaited Earth if negotiations failed. Captain Marcus Stone stood on the observation platform, watching Meridian fighters streak across the sky in perfect formation. Their crystalline hulls caught the morning light, transforming each vessel into a prism of deadly beauty. Beside him, General Tissera provided commentary with obvious pride. Third battle group consists of 47 vessels, she explained, her scarred exoskeleton gleaming in the sunlight. Each fighter carries enough firepower to level a small city. The Empire maintains 16 such groups in this sector alone. Marcus nodded appreciatively, though his trained eye caught details the Meridians probably didn't expect him to notice. Their formations were impressive but predictable. Their weapon systems powerful but energy-intensive. Their tactics honed through centuries of facing inferior opponents. Magnificent, he said honestly. Your pilots are clearly exceptional. Tissera's color patterns shifted to pleased acknowledgement. They train for cycles to achieve such precision. Tell me, Captain Stone, what military experience does Earth possess? Some, Marcus replied with deliberate understatement. We've had our conflicts over the years, against your own species, I assume. Tissera's tone carried the dismissive note common among Meridians when discussing human capabilities, how ... quaint. Sometimes the most difficult wars are the ones you fight against opponents who think like you do, Marcus observed. When both sides understand strategy and tactics, when both sides are equally motivated, those conflicts teach hard lessons. Something in his voice made Tissera study him more carefully. The human captain possessed a calm confidence that she found ... intriguing. Most species' military representatives grew visibly intimidated during these demonstrations. Stone seemed genuinely interested, but not at all concerned. You speak as one who has seen combat, she noted. Some, Marcus repeated. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the barriers of species and politics seemed to fade. Warrior, as Jessa had observed. Perhaps, Tissera said slowly, you would join me for the tactical analysis session this evening? I would be curious to hear your perspective on theoretical scenarios. In the diplomatic quarters, Ambassador Kethfer found himself pacing in undignified behavior that would have shocked his political rivals. The human delegation's composure throughout the morning's intimidation display had been unsettling. He'd expected fear, desperation, perhaps even angry defiance. Instead, they'd shown polite interest and asked technical questions that demonstrated uncomfortable insight into Meridian military capabilities. Commander Hawthorne had been particularly troubling. Her questions about fleet logistics and command structures weren't the idle curiosity of a primitive diplomat. They were the pointed inquiries of someone who understood military operations far better than her species' supposed technological level should have allowed. A soft chime announced a visitor. Kethver's security screen showed Hawthorne herself. Alone and apparently unarmed. "Commander," he greeted her as the door dissolved. "To what do I owe this honor?" "I was hoping we could speak privately, Ambassador." Away from the formal protocols and watching eyes. Kethver's compound eyes studied her carefully. There was something different about her demeanor, less diplomatic restraint, more honest directness. "Please sit," he gestured to the conversation. "Area? Or would you prefer to stand?" "I confess uncertainty about human comfort preferences. Sitting is fine." Jessa settled into the crystalline chair, which adjusted itself to her proportions with surprising sophistication. "I wanted to thank you for your consideration during these negotiations. I know this isn't easy for anyone. Consideration?" Kethver's color patterns shifted to confusion. "I fear you misunderstand my role, Commander. I am here to facilitate your species' integration into the Empire, not to provide comfort. Or yet you've been kind, patient, almost protective at times." Jessa leaned forward slightly. "Why?" The question hung in the air between them, charged with implications neither could fully voice. Kethver found himself trapped between duty and something harder to define: respect, attraction. The human woman was alien in every biological sense. Yet there was something about her intelligence, her dignity under pressure, that called to him. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "because your species deserves better than what is being offered." It was a dangerous admission, potentially treasonous to Empire doctrine. But looking into Jessa's warm brown eyes, Kethver couldn't bring himself to regret the honesty. "Then help us find a better path," Jessa said softly. "There has to be an alternative to conquest and subjugation. The Empire has endured for 3 centuries using proven methods. The Empire has endured by preying on species too weak to resist." Jessa interrupted, her diplomatic mask finally slipping. "But what happens when those methods fail, and you encounter someone who won't submit?" Kethver's air sacs contracted. "Are you threatening the Empire, Commander?" "I'm warning you," Jessa replied, rising from her chair. "As someone I've come to respect, someone who I believe has honor beneath all that political conditioning. Earth isn't what you think it is. Humanity isn't what you think we are." That evening, the tactical discussion session proved more engaging than either Marcus or Tessara had anticipated. What began as a one-sided demonstration of Meridian military doctrine evolved into a genuine exchange of strategic philosophy. "Your formations assume technological superiority," Marcus observed, studying the holographic battle scenarios. "But what if you faced an opponent with equivalent or superior capabilities?" "Possible," Tessara replied automatically, then paused. "Hypothetically, you mean? Of course." Kosa manipulated the display, showing how the Meridian formations could be exploited by an enemy with advanced sensors and stealth capabilities. "See how your ships cluster around the command vessel? A single well-placed strike could decapitate your entire battle group." Tessara's color shifted through what Marcus was learning to recognize as professional fascination. "It's an interesting theoretical weakness. How would you address it?" For the next hour, they dissected military tactics with the enthusiasm of true professionals. Tessara found herself impressed by the human's strategic insights, while Marcus gained respect for the Meridian general's tactical flexibility. Once she moved beyond Empire doctrine. "You have an unusual mind for someone from a primitive species," Tessara finally said, then immediately regretted the qualifier. "And you have the instincts of a true warrior." "Despite serving an empire that hasn't faced real opposition in centuries," Marcus replied, "it's made you soft in some ways, overconfident. But the core talent is still there." Their eyes met across the tactical display, and Tessara felt something she'd never experienced before: a genuine intellectual attraction to an alien being. This human understood warfare not as a tool of oppression, but as an art form requiring skill, honor, and respect for one's opponent. "Captain," she said quietly, "what would you do if your homeworld were threatened by overwhelming force?" Marcus smiled, and there was something in that expression that made Tessara's exoskeleton tingle with warning signals. I'd make sure the force wasn't as overwhelming as it appeared. Meanwhile, in the research wing, Nora and Vexera worked late into the night, their professional collaboration having evolved into something much more personal. They sat close together, analyzing cellular structures, their hands occasionally brushing as they adjusted instruments. "Your species' neural architecture," Vexera murmured, her voice soft in the dim laboratory lighting. "It's so beautifully complex. The way your synapses form new connections, adapt to new information. It's like watching art in motion." "Your people's collective consciousness fascinates me," Nora replied, studying the alien woman's delicate features. "The way you can share sensory experiences, merge thoughts temporarily. It must be incredible. Would you like to try?" Vexera asked impulsively, then immediately regretted her boldness. "I mean, it's possible to establish limited neural contact with compatible species. Nothing invasive, just ... sharing." Nora looked into those multifaceted eyes, seeing vulnerability beneath the alien features. "Yes," she whispered. "I'd like that." Vexera's upper hands moved to gently frame Nora's face, while her lower hands activated a small neural interface device. This might feel strange at first. ... The contact was electric, not painful, but overwhelming in its intensity. For a moment, their consciousness merged, and each experienced the world through alien senses. Nora felt the rich spectrum of colors visible to Meridian eyes, while Vexithara experienced the emotional depth of human thought patterns. When they separated, both were trembling. "That was ... double quotes," Nora began. "Forbidden," Vexithara finished, but she made no move to pull away. "The Empire prohibits intimate contact with non-citizens." "Never," Vexithara breathed, leaning closer. "Whatever happens to our species, what we just shared ... it was beautiful." The dim laboratory light neath. The first reports came from the outer sensor stations just before dawn. Admiral Cassandra, commander of the Imperial Home Fleet, was roused from sleep by emergency alerts that made no sense. Ships were appearing throughout Meridian space, not approaching from outside, but simply materializing as if they had always been there. "Impossible," she muttered, studying the tactical displays in her command center. "Our sensors would have detected any fleet movement days ago." Admiral, her sensor officer, reported, his voice tight with confusion. "The readings are ... unprecedented. These vessels appear to be using some form of dimensional phase technology. They're not hiding from our sensors, they're operating in a space our sensors can't properly detect." Cassandra's forearms moved across her command interfaces with practiced efficiency, bringing up long-range scans of every major system in the Empire. What she saw made her blood run cold. Earth ships. Hundreds of them. Not the crude angular vessels they'd observed before, but sleek predators that seemed to bend light around their hulls. They hung in space like dark angels, their very presence. A rebuke to every assumption the Empire had made about human capabilities. "Send immediate alerts to all battle groups," she ordered. "Full military mobilization. Get me a direct line to the High Assembly." On Keter Prime, the emergency session of the High Assembly descended into chaos as reports flooded in from across the Empire. Admiral Cassandra's image flickered in the central hologram, her scarred features grim with professional assessment. "The human fleet consists of approximately 400 vessels of unknown design," she reported. "They've positioned themselves at strategic points throughout our space trade routes, communication hubs, resource extraction sites. They're not attacking, but they're clearly demonstrating the capability to do so." High Counselor Vrathok S. exoskeleton had shifted to deep red, the color of rage and panic. "How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated primitive technology, barely interstellar capability. Clearly our intelligence was incomplete," Cassandra replied diplomatically. "These vessels utilize technology we've never encountered. Attempts to scan them result in our sensors being redirected back to us. It's as if they're not entirely present in normal space." In the diplomatic wing, The human delegation watched the chaos unfold with careful attention. Ambassador Kethfer had personally escorted them to a secure viewing chamber, its color patterns cycling through confusion, concern, and something that might have been admiration. "Your fleet?" he said quietly to Commander Hawthorne. "It's been there all along, hasn't it?" Jessa nodded slowly. Earth learned long ago that the best defense is often invisible until it's needed. We've been watching, learning, preparing. For what? For the moment when diplomacy failed and we had to choose between submission and survival? Jess's expression was sad but determined. We chose survival. The chamber doors dissolved to admit General Tessara, her massive frame, radiating barely controlled aggression. "Commander Hawthorne, by order of the High Assembly, you and your delegation are confined to quarters pending." "No," Marcus Stone interrupted, stepping forward. "We're not prisoners, General. We're guests. And as guests, we have the right to leave whenever we choose." "You underestimate your position," human Tessara snarled, her weapon systems beginning to activate. "Do I?" Marcus smiled, and there was something predatory in the expression. "Admiral Cassandra, are you monitoring this conversation?" "AM," came the reply from the chamber's communication system. "Then please explain to General Tessara what happened when your third battle group attempted to engage our outer perimeter vessels." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Cassandra spoke, her voice heavy with professional defeat. "Our weapon systems were ... neutralized. No damage to either fleet. But our ability to fight was completely compromised. The human vessels appear capable of directly interfacing with our technology." Tessara's color patterns shifted to shocked disbelief. "Is impossible. Our systems are quantum encrypted. Biologically locked, your systems are impressive," Marcus acknowledged. "But they're based on principles we mastered centuries ago. We've been preparing for this moment since our first radio telescopes detected your civilization." "Preparing for what?" Kethfer asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "For first contact with a species that might try to conquer us," Jessa replied. "Humanity has always known we weren't alone. We've been watching, learning, developing countermeasures. When your scouts first approached our system, we were ready. The revelation hung in the air like a physical weight. The entire foundation of Meridian superiority had just crumbled. What do you want?" Grathic's voice came through the communication system, carrying the bitter taste of defeat. "What we've always wanted," Jessa replied. "Peace, trade, cooperation, between equals. But we won't be conquered, and we won't stand by while you continue to exploit other species." As if summoned by her words, new reports began flooding in. The Zanari, the Duran, the Calera species that had been forcibly integrated into the Empire were declaring independence. Human vessels had appeared in their space as well, offering protection and support. "You're destroying everything we've built," Sephan accused, his voice breaking with emotion. "We're freeing everyone you've enslaved," Nora replied, entering the chamber with Vexthera beside her. The Meridian scientist's color patterns showed distress, but also determination. "The Empire's methods were wrong," Vexthera announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I've studied human culture, human biology, human achievements. They're not primitives. They're our equals, perhaps our superiors in some ways, and they're not the only ones." Drathic kissed. Scientist Vexthera corrected. "I followed the evidence wherever it led. The Empire has been built on lies and exploitation. It's time for something better." The next hours passed in a blur of frantic negotiations and desperate attempts by Empire leadership to salvage their position. But the damage was irreversible. With human protection, dozens of species declared independence from the Empire. Trade networks collapsed as worlds chose to deal directly with Earth rather than through Empire intermediaries. Admiral Cassandra found herself in the unprecedented position of commanding a fleet that had been rendered effectively powerless. The human vessels continued their patient vigil, making no aggressive moves but clearly capable of neutralizing any Imperial response. "It's over, isn't it?" she asked Marcus during a private communication. "The Empire as it was, yes," Marcus replied. "That doesn't mean the end of Meridian civilization. Just the end of Meridian dominance. What comes next? Marcus looked at Tessara, who had been listening to their conversation with growing understanding. That depends on whether you're warriors or conquerors. Warriors can find honor in peace. Conquerors usually can't. Tessara's color patterns shifted through complex emotions. And what would you have us become? Partners, Marcus said simply. The galaxy is vast, full of challenges that require cooperation rather than conquest. Your people have skills, knowledge, perspectives that could benefit everyone if you're willing to share them freely rather than impose them by force. As the twin suns of Keter Prime began to set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, the three couples found themselves together in the diplomatic garden. The air was filled with the soft harmonics of meridian crystalline plants, their musical tones creating a gentle symphony. Jessa and Kethfer walked side by side, their conversation flowing easily between personal and political topics. The barriers between species seemed less important now, replaced by mutual respect and growing affection. You knew, Kethfer said. From the beginning, you knew it would end this way. I hoped it wouldn't have to, Jessa replied. But yes, we were prepared for this outcome. Humanity learned long ago that peace comes through strength, not submission. And now, Jessa smiled, taking his upper hand in hers. Now we find out what we can build together. Nearby, Nora and Vexara sat close together on a crystalline bench, their neural link allowing them to share emotions as well as thoughts. The sensation was intoxicating, deeper than any human connection Nora had ever experienced. Are you afraid? Nora asked softly. Terrified, Vexetta admitted. Everything I thought I knew about the galaxy has changed. But also excited. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm part of something larger than Empire doctrine. Science, Nora murmured. The pursuit of knowledge without the burden of conquest. Love, Vexthera whispered, the word carrying new meaning in their shared consciousness. Marcus and Tessara stood at the garden's edge, looking out over the city lights. The general had removed most of her military harness, her natural form, elegant beneath the ceremonial armor. Your people will need new purpose, Marcus observed. Military forces without enemies often become problems for their own societies. Perhaps Tessara agreed. Perhaps we become something different. Protectors rather than conquerors. Guardians of peace rather than agents of expansion. Is that what you want?